This episode of the podcast is not brought to you by the platform beer I am currently drinking, but we do have a new theme song this week, Don't Believe the Hype, by none other than one of our best friends, Derek Hoover. Here it is, Dinosaurus Rex. Take us in. Welcome to Here We Go Cleveland, Week 8 edition. The Browns are across the pond. I'm your host, Bill Hebel. I'm not your Bill. I'm your host, Bill Hebel. I'm here alongside my good friend, Michael Zappa. How's it going?
What's up? Doing well, Bill. I'm really excited about this pod. You know why?
Why is that?
Because I can guarantee you that next week we will not lose.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean the Cleveland Browns. So next week's the bye. So we have a big game.
The parade comes to town next week, the bye parade. Everyone goes nuts.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, I'm not too optimistic that we're not going to be going into that bye at 0-8, which is just fucking unbelievable. But not feeling too great about it.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I was at the game last week, and let's dig into that a little bit before we start with the preview, because there were some good moments, I guess, and there were some bad moments.
When you saw it live, though, without like being interrupted by whoever's doing the broadcast, whether it be CBS or Fox. I think most Browns games are on CBS, but that they don't look, honestly, watching them live, they don't look as bad as you're led to believe on TV. Did you get that feeling when you were watching the game?
I did get that feeling, yeah. I really think that, I mean, not that they're a well put together team, but they.
Let's not get carried away. Not that they're a fraction of a good team.
Right.
Don't get my words confused.
But they do not look as bad as they execute a lot better than they seem to on TV, and their defense looks great.
Yeah, and think about. I agree 100%. Like, yeah, obviously we can talk about the defense much more positively than we can talk about the offense. But I mean, if you think about it, we're doing what we're doing on defense with a shit, especially last week with a shit secondary.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you got an undrafted free agent. You have a 7th round or 5th round pick in Jamar Taylor that was traded for, I think, a 7th round pick.
Right.
You have a rookie in Jabril Peppers. You have an undrafted free agent in Derek King. Like,
got
you just have all
the other McCourty twin.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
The one that most people talk about.
So it's not like we exactly have a star-studded lineup. So I think, like, schematically the defense is okay. And when I was watching it live, I was very encouraged, I think was the word.
Yeah,
because it's we've talked about it 100 different times that the national media beat up so hard on the Browns, and we read those articles, whether we like them or not. Being fans, we read those articles to get those points of view, and it's easy to get down on the Browns. But then you watch them, and it's easy to see the results of the game and say the Browns are shit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually go to the games that the talent level isn't so lopsided, like games like the Titans or the Jets or, I don't think it's nearly as bad. So hopefully we'll just start turning the corner on some of those games.
No, and I thought their defense looked really good. Like you said, I mean, we could overtalk the defense because of how the offense was playing, but watching Kaiser for the first time in the first half, I don't know if it was the play calling or what, but he didn't really have much, like, I felt like he wasn't in sync with his wide receivers very much. Now that comes with, coming off of not playing the week before. at all. And no, that was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
No, it was the week before.
Oh, it was the week before. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing where I got too pumped kind of like threw me off.
Yeah.
So
Right.
So this was first start after all that time. I don't know. He didn't look like in those first few games watching him on TV. It looked like he had some kind of a connection with his receivers. He was able to move the ball a decent amount, but I don't know. I don't know if it was a confidence thing, if he was not trying to, make any mistakes. But I really liked our chances with Kai. I mean, the game was tied at halftime. I don't see why we had to all of a sudden switch it up to Kessler. I mean, yeah, Kaiser had another red zone interception, which was awful, but the one thing I noticed about Kaiser is, I'll say this. Regardless of his incompletions, I believe he only threw 2 terrible throws. And it just so happened that both of those throws were intercepted. Those were and they were both him trying to make a play where there wasn't really a play there. And those are really the only 2 bad throws that he had. So I was really impressed with that. I mean, gosh, if we would have got a field goal out of that red zone attempt or even, maybe even a touchdown, it would have been a different story. We probably would have been sitting here like crying, not knowing what to do with ourselves when the Browns won. I may still have.
What is, let's say on a percentage basis, 1 to 100, what percent do you believe that there's truly a disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff? Because I think the second that I get to 100% there, like, I've given up on the season, because I don't want to believe it. But I'm at probably like a 35-40% belief that there is, because I just think like Hugh Jackson makes a bunch of fucking boneheaded play
right.
calls.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. But I still believe in him, and I still believe in the front office having a 3-year plan that it's difficult to get through. That might take 2 years but I still think there's a foundation being built. But like, I think the second that there is a hard disconnect or butting heads between front office, it can't work. It cannot work. And we're going to bring in a new coach or a new front office who's going to want new players, and it's going to all start over. So I'm at like a 35-40% right now. And I think it's like all lack of communication between the 2 groups, because it's like, if Hugh Jackson knew that his job was safe, I don't think he'd feel as much pressure or have such a short leash for DeShone Kizer, because I watched the game last week, and I saw DeShone Kizer not doing anything out of this world, but playing within himself, right? Just making the right plays for the most part. Yeah, in on the one play that he messed up,
right?
I thought he was trying to do too much.
Yes,
and like he took a shot down.
3 guys in front of.
Yeah, and I think it's Hugh's job to just say, look, we don't want the killer strike. That's fine. Like, if we dink and dunk our way all the way down to the 20. We'll run the ball 3 times, and if we get to the 10, we'll run the ball 3 more times.
Yeah.
If not, we'll kick the field goal.
We'll be the Sam Brat. We'll have DeShone Kizer break the completion record by just throwing like screen plays all game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes it's just mind numbing what Hugh Jackson is doing right now. It's just like, come on, you're better than that. It's like, come on.
I know.
So, anyway, what's your gauge? Sorry.
So even though I'm probably lower, I'm one of the people that's probably more in favor of Hugh Jackson being fired. Excuse me. I actually think that there's less of a disconnect than you think. I think it's about like, I would put my number at 20% right now. Because I know that.
But
What's that?
You just think Hugh's that bad then?
Well, I don't know. Some of the talent that the Browns have brought on recently, in the past. I mean, not to go back too far because this is such a new regime. But some of the guys haven't worked out. But I do think the guys on the defensive end have been really strong. And I do feel that there is a lot of, like, our offensive line is great. Duke Johnson's a great talent. Njoku's a great talent.
Never get either of those two. I mean, we're getting Duke the ball more often now. But
yeah, that's
Njoku,
great.
Last week, 2 catches, 58 yards. It's like, why doesn't he have the Kenny Britt targets? No,
right.
I'm just kidding. I hate Kenny Britt so much.
The only targets he has are the targets that the fans put on his posters and shoot toy guns at.
Bill, I gotta be honest with you. In all my years of watching the NFL, I don't know that I've ever hated a player like I hate Kenny Britt. I just think that he is like a piece of shit who just wanted to cash in. It's okay. It's one thing. Here's my deal with Kenny Britt. It's one thing to be ineffective on the field. I understand that at that level, that sometimes, you might lose focus, things might not go your way.
Yes.
But you know what? You know what takes zero talent? Fucking attitude.
Right.
Zero talent. And his attitude, we have a young, impressionable team like that is vulnerable to like the emotional swings of the NFL.
Right.
And he impacts them. I fully believe that he impacts them negatively off the field. And as soon as that happens, like, it's one thing if you're trash on the field, bench him, right? Like, Hugh can bench him if Hugh had any other options, but he hardly does.
He really doesn't, so he can't bench him because he's healthy. That's why he puts him out there.
It, like, elevates the problem I have with him exponentially when he's keeping young guys like Corey Coleman out past curfew.
Right.
Or they're on this trip to London trying to get their first win, and he's telling the media how much he hates playing here, hates the fact that he's there. That does no one good.
No.
That does literally.
No.
Someone tried to. I was listening to the Cleveland Sports Radio 92.3, The Fan, shout out. And some caller called in today and said, at least he's being honest. I said, no.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. Like, the team, the young players on that team, I guarantee, because I would do the same thing if I was over there.
Yeah.
And we are we are older than the average age of a Browns player.
It's so crazy.
24.3 or 24, yeah. So, like, I know at my age, if one of the leaders on the team was like, had this terrible attitude about the game that we're going into, I'd be like, well, shit. What do I know? I should trust this guy.
Right.
If he hates it, I'm gonna hate it, and that is just so shitty. I don't know why they haven't cut him yet. It's like, to me, the best news that could come out of this weekend, beside a win, is fucking getting Kenny Britt off this team.
Kenny Britt, yeah. Okay, here's one of the best things that could happen this weekend. It's a perfect situation for the Browns going to London. It's tell either of those guys, Kenny Britt or Hugh Jackson, the wrong time that the plane comes back, and one of them is standing, has to play soccer for the rest of his life.
Well, I think you're being too harsh on Hugh Jackson, but I'm all for doing that with Kenny Britt because he's a piece of garbage.
Yes. So, okay, you brought up a great point I want to touch on a little bit here, and it relates to Kenny Britt a little bit, is that the Browns have, and also the point you made about us being older than the average Browns player, the Browns have zero, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they have zero veteran presence. And even worse, they have zero guys that have been in a winning culture and know how to show, like, there's no one that can show like, oh, this is how we did it, like in Seattle, or this is how we did it on the Patriots. Like, and I don't know how exactly you bring those guys into Cleveland because they're not necessarily going to want to come to the team as a free agent. But
Kenny Britt $1 million.
Yeah,
I think
seriously.
you can afford to try
seriously
pay like a locker room influence, like I don't know, whatever it takes to get him in here.
I don't know.
I agree 100%. I think like the strategy is like making it simple. You strip it down, and then you accumulate draft picks in year 2. You use those draft picks on core foundation pieces that will be your foundation for the 5 years. And then you sprinkle in some veterans that are like positive locker room presence, right?
Yeah.
That will have some ability, which are guys like Jason McCourty, right?
Right.
He was he's a great player. He's still a good player, and he has like a great influence on the secondary. Guys like I think even like Christian Kirksey would be that way. I think Jamie Collins is probably a good influence. I think he's like a work ethic guy.
Yeah.
Guys on the offensive line I think are the same way. But it just blows my mind that if that's truly the plan, why you cut guys like Joe Hayden. Because I think like if Joe Hayden were on this team, like I think he would have put Kenny Britt in his place already.
Oh yeah. Yeah, have him go ahead him at practice and like just talk to him all day.
Who on the offensive side of the ball is going to step up and be like, Kenny, you're not pulling your weight, like,
right.
or be like, hey, Kenny, we don't need you to tell us how bad. Like, we're in this together. We don't need you to tell us how bad it sucks. We know, like, it's not ideal for us to be in London. The last thing anyone needs in a shitty situation is someone telling them how shitty it is.
Right. Exactly. And especially like a new face that came in this year. It's like, man, this team just sucks. It's like, well, no shit. Like, what did you expect when you came in here? Like, weren't you supposed to, like, I don't see how he is not trying because he has like this is like his 9th year in the league. And so if he has all the ambition to like, why doesn't he have all the ambition to do great this year so he can have like a contract with someone else for like to finish out his last 3 years in a winning situation where a team actually wants him because they're like, man, look what he came and did on the Browns and like he did that. He's going to do so. Like look at how well Terrell Pryor got paid out last year, like just by coming in, working hard, working his ass off, and was a great receiver for the Browns.
Yeah. So I'm scoring the front office in my mind, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So since they came on, draft picks aside, just looking at free agency,
right?
So they're -3 in my eyes.
Okay, how do you score that out?
The -3 are Mitchell Schwartz should not have let him go.
No,
Deshaun Gibson should not have let him go, and Travis Benjamin should not have let him go.
Right.
Okay, that's where they're -3. They pick one back up to me by not budging on their Terrell Pryor
TP deal.
Because honestly, like everyone said, oh, they're so bad, all this crap. He got benched, so whatever they use to make that decision looks wise at this point.
Yeah, really does.
We could very easily have him on this team for 4 years, $12 million a year.
Right.
And if he was performing like he is in Washington with like stable quarterback play, people would be roasting him too. But
now, does that get a half a point? Because at least if we had signed him, then we would not have had Kenny Britt.
Oh well, you didn't let me get to the Kenny Britt.
All right, let me the -10 situation.
The Kenny Britt signing is good for negative all of the point. So essentially, because of the Kenny Britt signing, the front office is dead to me.
Okay, so it's -3 plus negative all the rest of the points.
Yeah. But
oh, man.
I think, but anyway, I just think, like I said, it's one thing to be ineffective and not be producing on the field. but it's another thing to be having a negative effect on like player psyche, and especially as young as we are.
I know.
Like, I would pay a guy, and that's what frustrates me about the Joe Hayden deal, because it's like, so Joe Hayden was on the books for essentially the same amount this year as Kenny Britt is. I would have paid Joe Hayden the $10 million if the guy couldn't play like half as well as he could before, just to be like, he's a Browns lifer. Like, that one really gets me still.
I know,
because I just think despite the money, like he just would have been such a positive presence, like that you need sprinkled in, because you need like the positive mental attitude,
right? Like the winning, or not even a winning attitude, like I was talking about before, but just a positive culture in that locker room, because you never want, like, when everyone was coming into halftime or leaving the game, you never want everyone to just be hanging their heads. You want them to always have like a positive outlook, like, well, yeah, we didn't win, but like, look at all these great things we've done, and here's where we can improve and get the win next week. I mean, not that no one has that attitude, but it's tough to have that attitude when you have your veteran leaders, and I say that in quotes, and Kenny Britt and others that, don't really share that.
You're using that term lightly if you're calling him the veteran leader.
Well, I was looking at the Browns roster, and there's literally two people.
Look, if I'm in a room with Hitler, Osama bin Laden, and Kenny Britt, and I got a gun with 2 bullets, I'm shooting Kenny Britt twice.
I'm not going to say anything about that.
Yeah.
But looking at the roster, I mean, they have after Joe Thomas's injury, and we'll touch on that shortly, they have 2 guys who are 30 and above. Literally everyone else is there's like a handful of guys, and they're 28, 27.
Who is it? Joe Thomas and Kevin Zeitler?
Joe Thomas is 32. Jason McCourty is 30.
Oh.
And then the punter, Colquitt, is 32. I think Zeitler, he's only 27.
Damn.
Yeah, and there's like, after you go down from those 3 guys, there's, another handful of guys that are 26, 27, 28, and then everyone else 22 to 24. It's so ridiculous how young that is. And it's literally only going to get younger with the amount of draft picks that we have. So it's just, it's so crazy. And I do think the front office has done a good job they shored up the offensive line. They've got some great pieces on the defense. But other than that, there are holes everywhere. And it's going to be a tough job. I mean, they're going to be able to fill them some with this draft. Like we talked about last week, like, this has to be the draft where they use those picks to actually fill holes instead of.
Well, at the end, I don't know if it's too early to start taking tabs on like what we think. I guess like very briefly what we think is on the horizon that we think could help fix for next year. It might be too early. Maybe we wait.
Yeah, it's week 8. It's once we finish this game, we'll be at the halfway point. So.
But a point that you mentioned was they shored up the offensive line. Let's just take a minute to commend Joe Thomas for being the consummate professional. Like,
what a guy! What a standout guy!
I don't even know how you measure that amount of like success, because and success meaning just like the ability to play that many consecutive snaps in a league where if you make it through a game with not coming out for a snap, that's so like physically it's an amazing feat. Then you pair that with the struggles that the Browns have had, and I think equally or maybe even more impressively, it's a mental feat, because to be able to do that like how easy would it be? Sometimes I turn off the TV. Like I don't even watch the game because I'm like, the Browns aren't going to do anything. So could you imagine like playing at that level for a team that the mental side is just so impressive to me. And I hope to God that he comes back. And if a lot of the Cleveland media have been saying that they think it's as good as done that he's going to retire, which I don't know what they're basing that off of. I mean, just the fact that he's 30. What did you say? 32.
He's 32 now. This is his 11th season. I mean, he is, under contract through through 2018 season. So maybe I could see him. I don't know. I don't actually see him retiring even after that contract. I would say he, comes back from the injury and finishes out 2018 and then signs like a 2-year deal and then retires after that 2 years, because then he would be, 35. He would have 14 seasons or so in the NFL. Guaranteed Hall of Famer. So
yeah, with all due respect to Joe Thomas, that is the one thing. Despite my hate for Kenny Britt, I would never wish injury on him. I don't wish injury on players, no matter what. Obviously, the shooting him twice would be somewhere where it wouldn't affect his playing ability. It would be that was a joke. But anyway.
So wait, I want to say this. Joe Thomas, I was there, and that was just, it was heartbreaking. Because in my mind, and we argued about this before maybe it wasn't on the pod, but, I see Joe Thomas as the greatest Browns player that not only that I've ever watched, but that's ever put on a Browns uniform. And some people may say, oh my gosh, Jim Brown, he was the best running back ever, but I still think, I don't know if it's something about his locks, his beard. I don't know what it is about Joe Thomas, but he is just.
I think it's. I don't know. I think it's kind of an unfair, it's an unfair opinion for me to have because I didn't see the greatest times that the Browns had. We haven't seen any of that. So, had we seen Brian Sipe or Bernie Kosar or Otto Graham or Jim Brown or any of those guys in their prime, we may feel differently. But I think without question, you're completely right in saying that he is the greatest Brown that we've been able to watch. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think.
Gosh, I don't know.
I can't
Who
tell
else?
you.
Charlie Fry?
Charlie Fry, Dennis Northcutt, Lee Bodden,
Jeff Garcia.
Yeah. So I don't know. But so what I was saying, I didn't want to end the Joe Thomas topic. I just wanted to say, I would never wish injury on anyone, and it's really unfortunate because I think, just for a number of reasons. But if it was going to happen and it's done, it's in the past, it's already happened. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world that he's going to come back next year. I think he's coming back, assuming he comes back, that he's had essentially half a season that he wasn't giving it his all for nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a paycheck there and stuff, but essentially now you put Joe Thomas on the shelf, and hopefully next year and hopefully this back half of the season we have something to build on, whether it be a running game or a good defense or something, or Deshaun Kaiser playing adequately, not even great, adequate, and getting his completion percentage reduced. I just think it's not a bad thing at Joe Thomas's age, now that the injury has happened, to say, look, Joe, we appreciate everything you've done. You don't have this streak on the line. Just rehab as hard as you can. And next year, you're either going to be protecting a top 3 pick, most likely.
Yeah, I would say.
or you're going to be protecting a team that really showed progress in the back half of the season, which is what I'm hoping for.
Right. Well, we'll see. I don't know. The schedule gets tougher now. I mean, we had our chances. The Jets, the Colts. We played the worst teams early.
Yeah, but
also our team could get. The Browns could eventually get better, and
I get all that, and I get that winning percentages our easiest games were behind us. But when you're a team like the Browns, there are no easy games, right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, I just feel like in all professional sports, specifically like NFL and the NBA, everyone on every team is paid to play the game to win, right? So like on any given day, it doesn't matter if if you're the elite 5 teams in the NFL, then I'm not going to give the Browns a shot against them. But we have the Bears on the roster. We have the Chargers on the roster. We have the Jaguars on the roster, or not on the roster, but on the schedule.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think
the
that
Bengals are shaky? Like, which Steelers are going to show up at the very end of the season? And
do I think we're going to win those games? If I had to answer right now, I'd say absolutely not.
Right.
But we get into a lot of games, or we've lost 5 games now this year, 4 or 5 games of the 7 we've lost by 3 points or less.
Yeah.
So
the only game that they didn't, the Indianapolis game, they didn't cover because the Browns were favored. But I think all those other games that they lost, they at least covered. And Houston. But the games that you mentioned where we lost by only 3 points or so, we at least covered the spread, so we made some people's wallets happy. But I mean, that's not what this is about. But
that's why I just don't put a whole lot of weight behind this. Oh, if we were going to win 4 games, we needed to do it in the first half of the season, because I'll hammer this point home before the season is over. If we are going to win 4 games,
it's going to be the last 4.
I would much rather it be 4 of the last 8 than 4 of the first 8. So, because I just think if we're able to go 4-5 these last 9 games or whatever it is, then that is, I think you can forget, like, we don't have to cash in the season yet. Like, if we go 4-5 or even like 3-6.
You start to build a little buzz around the team.
And our conversation 2 months from now could be completely different than what we're having now. But it's such a knee jerk, league, and the media is just so knee jerk. I just want to see the whole season. If we're 0-16, then I think you have no choice but to make a change somewhere.
I
think that you can follow up 1-15 with 0-16.
No, and I definitely think that if the Browns go 1-15 or 0-16 this year, even though the front office may still choose the same players that they would if the Browns won more games, from a fan's perspective, looking at next year, you're still thinking, oh, it's going to be another like hopeless season. But if they win 3 games or they win 4 out of the last 9, it starts to build that buzz, like I said earlier, and fans start to think, well, maybe like we'll get some great players like this. Maybe this next 2018 will be 7-9. We'll be close, and then by 2019 we'll have all those pieces in place from 2018, and we'll start filling holes and building backups to players that will eventually become starters. And
Bill, I'm getting pumped just listening to you.
I sound like Tim Tebow at 9 a.m. in the morning, just like getting everyone.
Like that is what my vision is. Like, I agree. Like it's been a tough go. Don't get me wrong. Like the coaching's been tough. Some of the free agents, they're playing, like, Myles Garrett he's out again this week.
Man.
That's no fault of his own.
No.
But let's hope the last 8 games of the season, maybe Kenny Britt comes around. Maybe this is his week that he puts it together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he builds off that for the back half. Like, when you look at it, I mean, God, I never want to say things couldn't, I'm not even going to say it, but things have been bad. We've had some things fall against us, like, Myles Garrett being out, the jockeying with the quarterback situation.
Right.
Maybe Hugh, my opinion is, we've done the whole thing where it's like, okay, give Hogan a start. Pull Kaiser and put Kessler in. So neither of those things have worked.
Yeah.
And produced wins. So I think by trial and error standards, the next thing is just to keep Kaiser in.
Yeah, the last thing in the Hughes bag of tricks of quarterbacks is just to not do anything.
Yeah. So it's like maybe, and that's what drove me crazy about this past weekend's game is like, can you imagine what the psyche to me, Kaiser is a fierce competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes to a fault, right? Because
right.
He's way too. But could you imagine what the psyche of the team would have been if Kaiser stuck it out and he ended up leading the team back to the rookie quarterback, 21 years old? If he would have been the one, gets his starting job back this week, if he would have been the one to lead them back to a win, to their first win, like, I just think
I know that's so much for the team psyche, and that's so much for the front office's psyche because they start to build confidence about Kaiser, and then just as a player for himself. I mean, like, to be the guy that, because since Joe Thomas went down and everything looked bad at the end of the game, it put a big mark on that game. But if he could have somehow got a big dark mark. But if Kaiser could have somehow stayed in and got a win, then I don't know. There wouldn't, the Joe Thomas thing still hurts so bad, but there wouldn't have been a dark mark at all on that game. And I just think that you have to give him the chance. Like, yeah, he makes some errant throws, and yeah, he's still learning the offense because what he had, like 14 full pad practice days, and now like 5.5 games that he's played in. So being able to give him like the reins, I just don't get why we continue. Like, it's not like he's injured, or the one game maybe he was injured.
The migraine game?
Yeah, that game. But like, I think he already knew before halftime that he wasn't coming back, because I don't know if he runs into halftime with a cap on.
He did come to the game, didn't he?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Did you read Did you happen to read the article on The Ringer by Bill Simmons?
His mailbag,
Well, he did a big article on the Browns, basically just trying to bring some context to the passing on Carson Wentz, the passing on Deshaun Watson. I thought it was a good article. I'm not a big Bill Simmons fan. But
I haven't had a chance to read that one yet.
Yeah, it's a good article, and like we talked about last week, it just seems like Hugh and the coaching staff aren't doing a great service to DeShone Kizer in like what plays he's running.
Yeah, he's just thinking of him as like Hugh Jackson thinks he has like a great or a good NFL quarterback. It's like you're developing like the youngest quarterback in the league.
Yeah. And we talked about it, there's just as a fan watching the game, there's things that you pick up on from the commentators or what coaches or whatever that make the game easier for rookies. And like we talked about last week, it's rollouts, right?
Yeah.
Because then they only have to survey half of the field, so that it makes the decision-making process easier. And Bill Simmons
sometimes it does not work out, because I don't know how many times I watched Kessler in the second half of that game roll out and just toss it to the sideline.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think that speaks more to Kessler and why, like, I like Kessler as a guy. I know he really wants to be a starter in
He
this
can't throw the
league.
ball 25 yards down the field.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't even know how to describe it, but when you watch Kessler play, now that you've seen the way that Kaiser can whip the ball around and just throw it like a rope, like, you just see why Kessler at best will be a quality backup in this league. And I hope the best for him. I think, like, I really do.
Yeah, he seems like
I hope he's our quality backup once we get some around, because I like the guy, and he was totally invested in that game last week.
Yeah,
he wants to win as much or more than anyone. So I give credit to Kessler there, but you can't teach arm strength. You can't teach the ability to just whiz around.
I mean, maybe Hogan could teach them how to javelin throw, but
yeah. Hogan. Don't get me started on your boy Hogan. But anyway.
Yeah, it's back to the article.
It's a really great stat that I thought was interesting, and it was number of rollouts per game for quarterbacks who have like 125 passing attempts this season. And Kaiser, of the starting quarterbacks, was like number 21, and Deshaun Watson was number 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, and we talked about this after the Texans game, and it was, I just don't think that Hugh is. I think you made a great point in saying that Hugh just thinks that if he gives him a little extra attention, he immediately becomes this veteran NFL quarterback that can do anything that he wants. But it's like, simplify the game, play to his strengths. The kid's super mobile. Roll him out.
Yeah, did you not watch him at Notre Dame? Like, he was a great athlete.
Do some play action fakes, roll him out, and if he doesn't see anything, tell him to throw it away or scramble for 2 or 3 and slide.
Yeah. You know who else is probably on the top of that list? Dak Prescott. Kind of a similar style.
Right.
Like Cam Newton. Kind of a similar, like, they're both those very mobile, like, guys that make plays when they're outside of the pocket.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's like a published stat that you can see the list, or if he had to go digging for that. But I'm like, he made the reference too. He's like, you just need to simplify the playbook a little bit, make it easier for him. And I'm like, yeah, like, just a casual fan, like, who doesn't know the X's and O's fully of football. Mm-hmm. I can see that. He's struggling a little bit, and I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
But as a quarterback, I fully believe now, after unfortunately seeing all of our options, that Kaiser easily gives us the best chance to win against the Vikings and to develop our full team as we go forward.
Yeah, so if I have, and I hope I don't eat crow on this, but if I have one wish for the rest of the season, it's just do what you said you would do from the beginning of the season, and that's play Kaiser through ups and downs.
Right.
Like, keep him close to you and say, look, like, he knows now that you're not kidding if you say, I'm going to pull you. Mm-hmm. Like, if you keep making these mistakes, he knows you're not kidding. Keep sending him those threats.
Yeah.
But, like, at this point, we have to see what we have in Kaiser in the next 8 games. Because can you imagine going into next year's draft with Kaiser showing some real promise in, like, potentially being our franchise quarterback?
Right.
And being able to spend a top 5 pick, because even if we win 4 games, it'll still probably be a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Top 5 pick, top 15 pick, and 3 number 2s on fucking skill positions. Bolstering defense. Like, now I'm getting excited.
Right? Because and the quarterback, like, crop that's coming out this year is, like, not that impressive really in terms of, like, there's not a guy that just, like, really jumps out at me and says, like, oh man, the Browns are going to have the number 1 pick and draft X. There's no real guy. Like everyone's kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know about any of these quarterbacks.
At this point, if we had the number 1 pick, I would draft Saquon Barkley.
Oh yes, yeah, or maybe like Minka Fitzpatrick, or some like another defensive end.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
I'd have a really hard time. That kid just looks.
Oh yeah,
he looks phenomenal. He to me he's the next Le'Veon Bell, and if we could have Le'Veon Bell,
I know.
Young quarterback.
That's gonna be a game to watch this weekend. As he comes to Columbus play Ohio State, that'll be a very interesting game. I mean, if he runs all over them, put the Heisman in his lap.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the future, about the draft, about the potential, 2018 outcomes that we'd like to see. We talked a little bit in the past. We talked last week. Let's get into the present this week. Preview. The Browns are heading to London. Well, they're already there, I think.
Yep, they are. Browns
are heading to London. Back 26 years after good old. I still haven't found out if Hugh is short for Huford, but I'm just going to continue calling him Huford Jackson.
Short for Huey.
Huey, yeah.
Huey with a Y.
Hugh Jackson and the Blowfish. But 26 years after Hugh Jackson won the World League as the London, I think it's the England Monarchs. He comes back to coach in London once again. And I'll give you, if you guess who was on that team at one point, not when Hugh was coaching, but played for the London Monarchs at one point, I will give you $1,000.
You gotta give me a hint.
No.
Is he in the NFL?
He's not an NFL player. I can't
Was he in the NFL at any time?
No.
Did he play college football in Ohio?
He did not play college football in Ohio. I can't really say anything because this is such a surprise name and big name that you would know as soon as I gave you the hint.
Michael Jordan.
Close. LeVar Ball.
No way.
LeVar Ball.
I hate the world.
You played tight end for the London Monarchs.
Wow. I was close. Well,
you were close.
So since LeVar Ball could beat Michael Jordan in one-on-one, therefore, by the transitive property, Michael Jordan was on the London Monarchs.
Correct. Well, what?
Okay.
What if the Browns took LeVar as their quarterback? How would you feel about LeVar?
Remember when I was talking about Kenny Britt earlier?
Yeah, with the Hitler Hussein thing?
No. Let's just forget about that for a minute. LeVar Ball is Kenny Britt level.
Okay.
Dislike.
Okay.
I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So they're heading to London.
Let's do player. What's the line? We'll do.
So the line is. Well, first off, I want to bring this up. Hugh Jackson right now, as it sits, and not to crap on Hugh Jackson anymore, but as it sits right now, he has the best odds to be the first coach fired this year at -250. So you gotta pay more than to pay out. Chuck Pagano is second at 5-1, so there's a 750 spread.
Where's Bruce Arians?
I only have those two. I'm not sure where Bruce Arians is at.
I don't want to give up on Hugh, but I already know who I want my next coach to be, and that's Bruce Arians.
I don't think I would take Hugh's odds because I don't think he's going to be fired. He probably doesn't have the best odds. Pagano's got the best odds, maybe at least, top two, looking at 5-1 for him to be gone. It'd be interesting to see what Bruce Arians is. So, okay, let's look at players to watch this week. Unfortunately, as you said earlier, Myles Garrett was ruled out for this game, and he could be, as I had David Njoku tattooed on my arm the past 6 weeks, Myles Garrett could be that for any Browns fan as a player to watch. So with him out, give me your top guys.
Yep, on offense, I'm going to give you two. I'm going to focus on wide receivers and hope that my player I won't have any option but to watch Duke Johnson. So I hope he's not my player to watch because I hope I'm force-fed watching him play. But the players to just pay attention to for me on offense are Bryce Treggs. I think he's the new kid on the block that, I think he's doing really well considering he's been here 2-3 weeks. So I think he's a quick, shifty guy. He took less money. I think he turned down an offer from Philadelphia to go back to come have a chance to start. So I like that about him. I think he's hungry. So Bryce Treggs would be my guy to watch. And I always have to give a shout out to my boy Kason Williams. I think it's just a time before he really has a breakout game because he's the only one of our receivers that, meets the eye test. And I think going back a few games, there's probably 3 or 4 instances in the first 7 games where he has a massive game that's negated by a penalty. So I'm looking for him, Bryce Treggs and Kason Williams, to be the difference makers with the receivers on the offense.
Yeah, let me go offense and then we'll. So thanks for stealing Bryce Treggs from me. He was going to be my choice, but I'm actually going to watch. I'm going to watch the Men in Stripes this week. As you alluded to, penalties have killed the Browns. And I just think that, you can't have penalties in these games that just kill drives and kill great plays. That, your guys, Duke Johnson, Bryce Treggs, Kason Williams, they've all had, not touchdown. I can't remember off the top of my head any touchdowns that have been called back by penalties, but, 20, 30-yard gains that have easily been called back by penalties.
Yeah, momentum shifting. In tight games, momentum is everything. And
right.
I said, for at least 4 games have been lost by 3 points. Momentum's everything.
Yeah. In that game.
Another one is Isaiah Crowell. God, wouldn't it be great to see him get a 100-yard game?
Yeah, have him average more than 2 yards a carry. And not get, that's the big thing I'm going to be watching about this game is, with, his name's escaping me, but our replacement for, Joe Thomas at left tackle, that line, Minnesota's D line is one of the best in the NFL. So seeing how, the new offensive line unit handles them and how our running game is able to handle them, is going to be very interesting this week. So hit me with your, don't tackle me or hit me hard, but hit me with your defensive players.
You can go first on defense.
All right, let me go first on defense. Is Peppers back this week? I hope to God he's back this week. But
yeah, I hope he's back.
I was really impressed. And maybe it's too vanilla of a pick. But I've been really, really impressed with Joe Schobert.
Hell yeah.
So Excellent. Far, and he is just one of those guys that is consistent double-digit tackles every week. Always seems to be in the right place at the right time, knocking balls down, defending. He seems to be always defending the right guy. There's never everyone really open that he lost his ground on. So that's my guy to watch.
There's 2 names last week that you kept hearing repeatedly, and it was Joe Schobert and Brian Body Calhoun, BBC.
That was your guy to watch. That was a great choice.
Yeah, so they're just fiery guys that are around the ball constantly. So I think that's a great pick in Schobert. He jumped off the screen last week because every single tackle, everything, it seemed like Schobert was a part of. So
yeah.
hopefully he's developing into kind of one of those staples. Cause he's fun to watch. Same with Breen Body Calhoun, but I have my two defensive players to watch this week are Derek Kindred. So the other side of the safety, he's back. I think he was out the first few games, but
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah,
he's a pretty physical guy, and I don't know. I saw him make a few plays last week, and I think he's slowly getting back into it. And I'm excited to watch him this week. And the second one is Jamie Collins. So
yeah.
Jamie Collins, I think he's been okay. But that's about all you can say about him.
Right.
He hasn't.
Right.
I remember last year when we got him. I think the first game he had a sack. He had 14 tackles, and he was like the Joe Schobert. It seemed like every defensive play, Jamie Collins was in there on. And I know he missed a few games for concussion, and he's probably slowly getting back into it. But he's one of those veterans we talked about that he can lead a defense, right? If he's playing hyped up and he's playing like aggressive and he's into it, that can change the entire like mantra of the defense. So I hope that he gets up for this game and leads them, because Case Keenum, he's played some solid ball in his day, but he's not a world beater. So those are my two, Derek Kindred and Jamie Collins.
Yeah, those are great picks. And like I said, Jamie Collins showed some flashes earlier this season of how he had looked last year in some of the good games. But I think it's, even though he passed concussion protocol and is back, it definitely takes some time to really get your mind right for those games. So spread is the Browns are the quote unquote home team in this situation, but the spread is the Vikings are favored by 7.5. So what are you taking there?
I'm taking the Vikings. I think we're gonna get beat by 20.
Gosh.
I really, and you know what? It's not. I won't get too much into it. I just think that it's a perfect storm. I just think that all of their strengths play perfectly to our weaknesses at the moment, and I don't think you need great quarterback play to put some points on the board against the Browns. You just need some average quarterback play, and I think we're really going to struggle on the offensive line. So yeah, put me on record. I think we're going to lose by. I guess I'll say I think we'll lose by 14, but it'll be
but it won't seem that close.
Yeah, it won't seem that close.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to go. And maybe this is just me, Browns eternal optimist, hoping for the Browns win. I'm not saying that they win, but I think it's a kind of a perfect storm in the other direction. London games are always wonky. None of these teams have high-powered offenses, so it's not going to be like a shootout. So I think there's going to be a couple plays in the game that, it's going to come down to a couple plays in the game that decide the outcome. Now, Minnesota has much better odds of making those couple of plays. So I do think I'm taking them to cover. And maybe at the beginning of my statement, it seemed like I was going to take the Browns to cover. I think maybe it'll be, actually, no, I'm taking the Browns to cover. I think it's going to be like a 17-10, just grind it out.
Cover or win?
Cover.
Okay. So
yeah.
Still think Vikings win.
I think the cover's a little wonky. It's always hard to make the London trip. And, like I said, neither of these teams have prolific offenses. And fairly, both the defenses are the strengths. So I don't see it being a high-scoring game, which I feel like as long as the Browns don't commit too many penalties and, keep the turnovers, don't commit any turnovers, that they can be within a touchdown or so, of the Vikings. So I think
All right,
17-10 is my final score for that.
Okay. I got one more over-under for you
All right.
before we call it. I go 28 yards, number of yards Kenny Britt has on receiving.
How many? Let me look up a stat. Okay. I was gonna say, how many? I don't know if he had. Okay, I remember he had the one target last week where as soon as he, when the ball didn't touch his hands, he, hurt his knee somehow.
Yeah. Everything hurts when you suck, right?
Yeah. So I'm going under. Under. Even if he has a few catches, I mean, he's not going to go for 28 yards. I don't think. No. He's not going to go under. He's not going to go over.
Very far under, but I just wanted to see what you thought. So
I mean, gosh, I haven't looked at the average receiving yards per game stats last week, but before that, I mean, the top Browns guy had like 40 yards a game before last week. So, Kenny Britt within 12 yards of being our top average guy, and I don't think so. Which is sad, but no, I don't think so. Not for Kenny Britt.
Yeah.
Maybe Treggs will go off. I don't think we've had. No, you said Njoku had 2 catches for 48 yards. I don't think anyone's gotten over like 50 yards in a long time for the Browns.
Yeah. I think Njoku had 2 for 58 last week.
Okay.
But God, what would we do if we had a 100-yard receiver?
Oh my gosh. Or even a guy that averaged one guy that averaged 80 and one guy that averaged 60. Instead our top guys hovering around 45.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, the one thing that you can say is no matter what, it's going to be interesting because you never know. You just have no idea what you're going to get. So.
Right. Exactly. I hope that, I don't think Jackson, it would have been very interesting if Jackson came out, and I would have loved to see him say that Kaiser's going to get the complete game start. But he's never going to say that. So it'll be fun to watch Kaiser back there, and hopefully he gets to play a full game because he needs time to develop. He can't have these choppy sequences where he stalls his development because, Hugh thinks, instead of Hugh simplifying the playbook, he thinks that it's, better for him to sit back and try and watch how this, also not decent quarterback does your job.
Yeah.
So
we will see. I'm excited. 9:30 a.m.
We'll see. 9:30. I think it's on CBS, isn't it?
I think so.
I think so. So tune in. Put your if we have any West Coast listeners, that's 6:30 start times. That's a rough. I don't think we go west of the Ohio line. So maybe no one has to listen about that. Worry about that.
We have West Coast listeners. Shout out to all you West Coast listeners.
Yeah, shout out. All right. So, we do want to give a ghost shout out. We were going to have a special guest on here. This would have been his second time on the pod, our friend Owen. And he almost convinced us. I shouldn't even use the word almost. He tried and tried and tried to convince us that he would be able to Skype in while he was running tractor in the field. I think he's disking some ground. So he tried to convince us that he would make that, but I think we have his player to watch and his pick for the game. So let me pull it up. He did pick the Browns to win. So, man, that's a tough call with an 8.5 point spread there. Browns to win because he says Case Keenum can be stopped. That's his big point. And he calls out Carl Nassib. He thinks he's going to have a quiet game, but when you look back at the stat line, it's going to be some big numbers. He actually had a lot of I think he had 9 total tackles for Carl Nassib. So geez, a little nose tackle getting in every single play, basically. So I just wanted to give a ghost shout out. He's not a ghost, but our friend Owen, working the fields.
Sweet.
Do you have any closing thoughts there?
No, that's it. I think Carl Nassib's the end, but
well, whatever. This is positionless football at the Cleveland Browns. So
D-line. He'll play wherever he can.
Exactly. Wherever he can line up and get a offsides call or something like that.
I'm excited. Nonetheless, with all the shit, I'm still excited to see it.
I'm excited too. First actual regular season game that the Browns played in London. It'd be, like I was telling you before the podcast, it'd be interesting to talk to someone from London to see if these games are actually exciting for NFL fans. I'm sure they are, but how does the rest of London kind of perceive the NFL pushing over there? But it's exciting that the Browns are chosen. The matchups in the past, for all these London games haven't really been marquee, but it's always a great honor to be a part of something basically brand new.
Yep, agreed. So hope the Brits enjoy over there.
Yeah, I was going to start the podcast with a really bad hello governor impersonation of a British person, but I definitely saved myself by not doing that. But if you've made it to the end, we should do this mid-roll instead of at the very end. Go subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, and we're now available on Stitcher.
Give us a review too.
Yeah, give us a review. Bumps us up in the search bars and in the lists for all three platforms that we are currently on. So
follow us on Instagram as well, right?
Yep, follow us on Instagram. Here we go, Cleveland. Follow us on Twitter. We're HWG Cleveland. Follow us on the Facebook. Here we go, Cleveland there. So just search that and you can find us basically anywhere.
Alrighty. Thanks,
All
Bill.
right. Yeah, that wraps it up. Thank you, Michael.
We'll see you next week.
All right. Yeah, well, bye week. I can't wait. I literally can't wait. I have something to talk about during the bye week about can't wait. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But all right. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Catch you later,
see you, everybody.
guys.